It's prediction time. Boston College versus NC State. Who will win the battle of the ACC Atlantic on Saturday? All of this and more on today's Locked On Boston College.
You are Locked On Boston College, your daily podcast on the Boston College Eagles, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
This is Locked On Boston College. AJ Black here. Thank you all for listening. If this is your first listen every morning, I want to thank you. If you've made this part of your routine, whether it's while you're taking a walk, walking your dog, in the car, doing dishes, whatever you're doing, thank you. We have seen such a growth of Locked on our show in terms of listens, and I want to thank all of you for that because I think it's a testament to your dedication to the show, and it means a lot to me that you're doing that. On today's show, we're going to dive in and give our predictions. I'm going to be joined by Eric Hoffses shortly later in the show, and he's going to talk about this game. We're going to look around the games around the ACC. You get to hear his thoughts. He's a betting man, and he'll give his wagers on some of the big games of the weekend, and we'll talk about what he thinks about BC versus NC State. So let's get off. Before we get into the predictions, I want to jump in and talk about who the key players are for Saturday's game. Yesterday, we talked about what the keys are for BC to win the game. We talked about how on offense, Grosel needs to limit mistakes. On defense, they need to make a turnover or two. Those are the big keys. But who are the players that are going to be integral for Boston College to win? Now, I have an off-topic answer, and one person I'm going to say is going to be key in this game is Grant Carlson. As I said before on yesterday's show, I think Saturday's game is going to be a slog. I don't expect this to be a high-flying battle between two prolific offenses. I think both teams' defenses will probably get the better of both teams. And who will be important if that happens? That would be the special teams, And Grant Carlson, who averages about 48 yards a punt, he will be key in this game. Because if he can flip the field, if he can make Devin Leary march down that field and do 80, 90 yards every time, it's going to be a lot harder for NC State to make big plays. So I think Grant Carlson is one of my three players to watch. Another player I'm going to say is Zay Flowers. And you're like, yeah, of course Zay Flowers is a big one. But here's why. Zay Flowers has had some good games. The Colgate game, he had 7 touches for 150 yards. He looked every bit the playmaker. But since then, he's had some nice games, but you haven't seen him explode yet. You're just waiting for him to explode. He had that big catch against Mizzou. He's had big catches here or there, but he hasn't taken over a game. This is the perfect game for Zay Flowers to take over, and here is why. Yesterday, I said that Dennis Grosel needs to do small, manageable things to win this game. And to do that, you need to get the ball to your playmakers. You need to get them the ball so they can do the bigger things with their feet. Who's the biggest one to do that? Zay Flowers. He's the most dynamic. He's the most explosive player Boston College has on their offense. Get him the ball. Target him as much as you can and let him do things with his legs to win this game. I think he's going to be the big one. I expect Pat Garwo and that offensive line to have big games too, but Zay Flowers could be that X factor. We haven't said it yet, but he could be the guy that turns the tide in this game. On the defensive side, who is going to be a key in this game? It's going to be Isaiah Graham-Mobley for me. And he's been the X factor a couple times in my mind, but this game is important. I don't see BC being able to get home and turn around their pass rush in this game. I don't see them able to all of a sudden, after games of no sacks, all of a sudden be able to get to this quarterback and really get pressure. What they're going to do is mix things up. And when you mix things up, what player can you do the most with to mix it up? That is the linebacker position, because you can move Graham-Mobley into pass coverage. You can have him rush the quarterback. You can have him stunt. You can have him in spy on Devin Leary. You can do a million different things with him. If he has a good game, if he can cover the middle of the field, if he can get home and get to the quarterback here or there, or make a big play, Boston College's defense will have a good game. I think BC's defense needs to be able to kind of limit the mistakes they make in the middle, because those 15-yard chunk plays that they give up, and they've done it for all season, can kill them. But Graham Mobley is the kind of player that can take that over, and we've seen the defense get better. They gave up a ton of yards against Clemson, but they kind of clamped down when it came to the between the 20-yard line. And that's what they got to do. So I want to see Graham Mobley have a big game. I want to see him be that factor in the red zone as well. And, and really give BC the chance to get off the field with only 3 points, or get off the field with a missed field goal attempt. I think they can do it. So he's my X factor. So there's my 3 big players that need to have big games: Zay Flowers, Isaiah Graham Mobley, and Grant Carlson. And my final factor in this game is you, the fans that are going to be at the game. You are going to be the X factor in this game. If you make Alumni Stadium loud, if you make it rocking, that will give Boston College the home field advantage they need to win this game. I'm not saying this as a BC honk. I'm saying this as an objective person. When the fans go crazy in a football game, it makes it harder for the opposing teams to win. And Devin Leary, you want to put him into the most hostile environment that he can get into, so that it makes it harder for him to make the passes that he can make. Boston College and Alumni Stadium have a tendency at night games to be crazy. This is the perfect game to be crazy. I know all of you out there are dying for Boston College to get their first win against a top 25 team since 2014. This is your chance. Get loud, and as Jeff Hafley said, get in your seat on time and be ready to cheer for the team as they come out of the tunnel. I'll be up in the press box for this game, and I'll be looking for you. We're really excited for a big game on Saturday. So you'll hear full coverage on BC Bulletin, on Twitter at AJBlack_BC, and on Locked On Boston College. We'll have full recaps of the game. Now, in a moment, we're going to have Eric Hoffses on, and we'll get right into the predictions. I'm going to save the final segment towards ACC predictions. I know you want to hear what his prediction is for Saturday's game, so you're going to need to check that out. But before we get into that, let's take a break and talk about Built Bar. Built Bar is a protein bar that tastes like a candy bar. It's 100% covered in chocolate, and it is delicious. They come in 9 specialty flavors. They have all these overstock flavors right now, so if there's some specialty ones that you've tried in the past that you want, you can get it probably right now at BuiltBar.com. But if you don't, they have coconut, cherry barcia, raspberry, mint brownie, double chocolate, salted caramel, and my favorite, cookies and cream. And if you haven't tried it yet, you can always get the mixed box. You get 2 of each of you like of the original 9 flavors. Why are they so good? They have 17 to 18 grams of protein, only 130 to 180 calories for 4 to 5 grams of sugar. If you order today and use promo code LOCKED15, you'll get 15% off your next order. Again, use promo code LOCKED15 for 15% off at BuiltBar.com. This is Locked On Boston College. AJ Black here. I am so excited. We had an off week last week, so Eric took a little hiatus, but he's back today to talk about Boston College and NC State. Eric Hoffses, how you doing?
I'm good. I'm fired up after the bye week and ready to roll.
All right. So today, Eric's going to stop by. The first segment, we're going to talk about our predictions for the game. He's going to give his analysis because I love getting a different perspective on Saturday's game. And then we'll talk a little bit on the third segment about games from around the country, because there's some really interesting games that we're going to want to talk about. So Eric, BC and NC State, this is a close game. I think it matches up pretty well. Where are you in terms of how this game looks for Boston College?
Well, I think the first question I'll need answered that we won't know until Saturday is how Hafley gets the boys to respond. I mean, that Clemson game, everyone has circled as the biggest game of the year, and that they lost that in such heartbreaking fashion. It was a frustrating game because they probably played like a, what would you call it, a C+, B- game. That
Yep.
Certainly wasn't the best they could have played, and they almost beat Clemson. So now you get a bye week to kind of refocus, and so that's going to be number one for me. Like let's see how Hafley can get the boys to respond, because listen, not every coach is good at that, and good at swinging momentum. In fact, that's probably what separates a lot of the really good coaches from just the good coaches, is they not only are they good X's and O's guys, but emotionally they can get their guys to rebound after a really tough loss. So that's the first thing. So assuming Hafley does that, I like BC in this game. I think NC State has a really good defense, but believe it or not, and you won't get this kind of insight on every BC site, but Peyton Wilson is out for NC State, which I think is a pretty big deal. He's considered a first team all ACC linebacker. So
potential defensive player of the year in the ACC too.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, that's a huge deal for NC State, and their defense has been very good this year. You find them in the top 20 nationally in a bunch of categories, but I think they're a tier down from the Clemson defense. So that's BC just had to play Clemson on the road against a better defense, and so I think they're ready. I think this game falls great in that aspect, that they played probably the toughest defense they're going to go up against all year, and now they get another tough one, but with one of their key players out, and they get them at home, so they don't have to deal with the crowd noise. So definitely some good things in BC's favor there. And I switch over to the other side of the ball. It's tough to compare NC State's offense and Clemson's. NC State's is better statistically, but I got to tell you, I've watched NC State's offense a few times, and listen, Bam, he's a good running back. Okay, he's one of the best in the ACC. But when we talk about the passing game, like I watch these NC State receivers, and with all due respect, they kind of remind me of like the old BC wide receivers on some older BC teams. What I mean by that is like each guy has like one or two like really good traits. Like they'll have one of their receivers I noticed is, and you can figure out each guy, I'm sure, without me calling them out, but they'll have a tall, athletic, very well built wide receiver, but he doesn't know how to use his body. So it's almost like it's a waste of him being out there. They'll have a very sure-handed receiver that maybe isn't the fastest and best at being able to get open. And then they'll have a speed demon on the outside, and this guy's not necessarily great at catching the ball, even though he can get open. Like it's kind of a weak group of big play receivers on NC State. So I think that could be the deciding factor is those guys going against all the playmakers that the BC offense has. And we can talk about it more, but I think Dennis Grosel bounces back. I'm sure you saw it on Twitter, but we had a lot of people hating on him during and after the Clemson game. I don't know about you, AJ, but I'm really not ready to give up on him yet.
I'm definitely not. I'm right there with you because he's not perfect, but the drop off that you're going to get from Dennis Grosel to Matt Reeve or Dalen Menard is drastic. And you don't need to see practice to see that. Jeff Hafley says it himself. You know what I mean? It comes from the coaches. You listen to the press conference. He talks about how well prepared Dennis Grosel is. Those other guys are young or they're not as polished as he is. And I totally agree with you what you were saying with the wide receivers. And I mentioned that in the first segment. For me, one of the biggest factors in this game is how Frank Cignetti kind of continues to tinker with his offense a little bit to tailor it more towards Grosel's strengths. Mm-hmm. He can't go back there and huck 30-yard bombs because he's not going to win games if he does that. What he needs to do is do the short, quick out type of stuff with his wide receivers who are very good and let Zay Flowers use his legs to make it a 30-yard play. Let Jaden Williams do it. Let Trey Barry do it. And I think if they continue to kind of tinker with that and make it so it's like instinctual to Grosel, make it so that he just gets the ball out of his hand as fast as possible, I think that's going to be a big factor for his success moving forward.
Yeah, I think you're right. And I think you are seeing the offense kind of get tailored to Grosel a little bit more each week. And I'm sure the bye weeks only going to help. And to your point you made too about the younger quarterbacks, whether you're listening to Hafley or I'm sure you've talked to guys, you've been at some practices. Everyone I talk to says the younger quarterbacks are not close to being ready right now. Yep. So hey, talk to me again in 5-6 weeks, if we get surprised and BC goes on some kind of really bad losing streak, you're like, yeah, maybe then I'll talk about that. But with the ACC still up for grabs and a great season still within grasp, I mean, I'm not jumping off Grosel yet.
And so I wanted to ask you a question, Eric. I had mentioned one of the biggest factors going into this game, and I don't know how to say it other than Alumni Stadium gets weird during night games. It's just a weird place to play. It gets loud. The fans are a little lubed up. Do you think that's going to be a big factor going into Saturday night?
I think so. And they got, some rare good luck for BC. I saw the Red Sox game is scheduled for, 4 or 4:30. Yep. So it should, got to knock on wood with baseball, but it should be close to wrapping up around the time when BC is kicking off. So, yeah, that's gonna have a lot of people interested in this game. And like you said, yeah, I've been to many night games at Alumni, and although it's not known as a loud place, it does get loud at night for big games. It's certainly a different atmosphere than one of those 12:30 kickoffs in the afternoon. So yeah, I agree with you. I think it's going to play a big part in this game too.
All right, so Eric, I got 2 questions to you, and then we're going to get to your predictions. Boston College wins this game if they do blank.
If they don't turn the ball over too much and give NC State a short field, I think BC is the better team in this game. And like I said, unless there's lots of turnovers, I think they match up pretty well against this team. They're going to pull off the upset.
All right, so let's get to your predictions. I'll give you my prediction too. I'll let you go first. Will Boston College get their first AP Top 25 win since USC in 2014? I'm guessing you're going to say yes, based off of what you've already said.
Yes, absolutely. I like BC to win 27-20.
All right, I agree with you. I have them. I talked to Kenton Gibbs, who's a former NC State defensive tackle who is the host of Locked On Wolfpack, and I said 24-20, and I'll stick with that. I think Boston College will win close. I think it's going to be a defensive struggle. I like Boston College in this game, though. I think the home field advantage is going to be the key factor, and I think Grosel is going to have one of those games that people are going to kind of lay off him a little bit more after this, but I think the defense will be the big factor in this game. Now, Eric, in a moment, we're going to talk about games around the country and around the ACC. But before we do that, let me chat a little bit about BetOnline.ag. We're back and better than ever. All eyes are on the gridiron as teams are back for another football season. As always, BetOnline is your number one spot for all the pro and college football action this season. With a new updated site interface, even more odds, props, and contests, BetOnline is your number one source for everything football. Head over to their website right now and use promo code LOCKEDON to receive a 50% welcome bonus on your first deposit. That means you put $100 in, they're going to give you $50. That's a win right there. From football, basketball, boxing, right to your favorite Vegas casino games, don't wait to take advantage of this amazing offer available for the 21 season. BetOnline is the fastest and easiest way to bet on all your favorite sports. So head on over to BetOnline, where the game starts. This is Locked On Boston College. AJ Black here. I'm here with Eric Hoffses. If you have not already, make sure to subscribe to Locked On Boston College wherever you get your podcasts or on YouTube. On Monday, we're going to dive in with Mitch Wolf to talk about this weekend's game. We'll have instant reactions and get into all the nitty-gritty of Saturday's game. But before we do that, we're going to talk about the ACC. And this year is unique because it's a crapshoot in both divisions. You have both divisions seem to be up for grabs, even though the Coastal seems like it's more locked in at Pittsburgh right now. Now, Eric, we're going to go over some of the odds, and I'm going to get your bettor's take on some of these games. And these are all based off of lines on betonline.ag. So Friday, this was a game that I think is going to be closer than people think. And it's Clemson and Syracuse. Syracuse, we talked about BC being a weird place to play at night. Syracuse is a very weird place to play on Friday night. They beat Clemson in 2017 in the Carrier Dome. They beat Liberty earlier this year on a Friday night in Carrier Dome. They are a 13.5 point underdog in this game. And I think that might have to do with Clemson trying to figure things out. Will they figure it out, and will they cover, Eric?
I just don't see how they figure it out. The offense looks so broken. I don't think you can fix that a bye week. And like you said, Syracuse has some magic. Dino Babers on Friday nights. You mentioned two of them. I know they beat Virginia Tech. They had a big upset win a couple of years ago on a Friday night as well. Like, he just has that Friday night magic. So I am taking the Cuse in this one. I don't even know if Clemson can score 14 points in a game, never mind cover or something of that number.
Clemson has to figure something out. DJ Uiagalelei is not as bad of a quarterback as he looks, but they are not doing him any favors in the offense that they put around him, because they're trying right now to make him look like Trevor Lawrence, and he's clearly not. They got to figure something out with him, and I don't think they do it this week.
Me either.
All right. Interesting game. I'm curious about. At this point in the season, there's some really curious, interesting ones. 12:30 start, Duke and Virginia. This game's going to feature Mateo Durant, one of the best running backs in the country, against Virginia, who ranks 113th in the country in rush defense. But on the other hand, Brennan Armstrong is one of the best quarterbacks in the country. Can Durant keep up? I don't think so. It's a 10.5 point spread. I got Virginia in this one. Where do you fall?
I'm going to take the points in a weird game, but I'm going to preface that if you broke of all the games we picked all year, if you went like team by team, the one I have not gotten right once is Virginia. I've gotten them wrong every single week, even though I'm probably having the best gambling year of my career. Virginia is totally my kryptonite right now. So I'll take Duke, and I'll say I'm probably going to be wrong because I just can't pick them.
All right. Next, 3:30, it is Miami at UNC. These are two of the most disappointing teams in the ACC. We should have seen the UNC writing on the wall, but I think everyone fell in love with Sam Howell. They are 3-3, and they had a disappointing loss to Florida State last week. In a game that Mac Brown blamed basically me and every other media member that says that we were the ones that pumped them up too much. However, it's a 7.5 point spread. Miami just lost Eric King for the season. They have freshman Tyler Van Dyke, who is a very highly thought of freshman, but he's a freshman. I got UNC in this game for 7.5. What do you got?
Yeah. So even if Miami had King, I wouldn't take them getting 7.5 right now. So I definitely am not taking them without King. And I just want to pat Mac Brown on the back, a little sarcastically, but actually very seriously, because I have been fading North Carolina every week this season. I've been making a lot of money doing that. So I think it's going to have to stop with Miami, but I will hit that under 63 points because I don't know how they're going to hit that with how bad this Miami offense is.
Now, I talked about it on Locked On ACC. Does Manny Diaz come back next year?
Not unless it's not unless it's a financial thing. I mean, it's you can tell. Like, sometimes I think people jump on coaches and say they're not the right fit way too early. But as kind of a closet Miami fan from my childhood, I can tell you Manny does not have it, and they need to move on.
Mm-hmm. All right. Speaking of coaches, I got too hard on too early. There's a battle of two of them, and that is Pat Narduzzi and Pittsburgh against Virginia Tech. I honestly, at this point, I think that Pittsburgh is the best team in the ACC. I think they're better than Wake Forest. If you're going to give me Kenny Pickett in an ACC battle for the title against Wake Forest, I would take him in a heartbeat. I think he's the best player in the ACC right now.
Well, the problem with that is you also have to take old Pat Narduzzi with you, and I think he is very due for one of those Pat Narduzzi games. So personally, I'm going to take VTech and think Pat Narduzzi doesn't know how to cover that in a hostile environment in the road. Who you got?
I got Pitt. I'm buying high on Pitt right now. I think that, as I said, I think Pickett's enough to cover the Narduzzi woes, and I think he's going to win this game. And it's against Virginia Tech, who is another coach I don't particularly care for, Justin Fuente. I think that Narduzzi will win that game. And we already talked about NC State, so that's it for the ACC. Let's look around the top 25. There's some other games I think that are worth looking at. Let's first look at Oklahoma State against Texas. The Red River rivalry game last week was one of the craziest games I've ever seen. And can Texas bounce back? They're a 4-point favorite against number 12. Number 12 Oklahoma State. Where do you got in this one, Eric?
We kind of foreshadowed a little earlier unintentionally, but I said I think Jeff Hafley is a guy that can pick his team up after a tough loss and get him off the mat and to rally for him. I don't think Steve Sarkisian's that guy, so I am going to fade Texas in this one and go with Okie State.
I'm going to go with you that one too. I like Bijan Robinson a lot, but that was such a gut punch for Texas last weekend. I don't think they're going to cover for that one. Next, it's the ESPN Game Day game of the week. And it's, I think, the third time they've covered Georgia, because I think they had the Clemson Georgia game. They covered Georgia, and I forget who the other team was. And now they have Georgia again against Kentucky. It's number one Georgia, a 22.5 point favorite against Kentucky. It's 22.5 points, but that defense is absolutely absurd. I'm taking Georgia in this one.
Yeah, I've tried. See, I hate the Georgia offense, and I think JT Daniels is going to end up losing them a game. But I'm with you. That Georgia defense is so dominating. Like, I cannot get in front of them anymore. I've tried to do it a time or two this year and have been burned. So I am not doing it again.
Jordan Davis, who I think is like 6'6", 340 and moves like a linebacker, is impossible for offenses to block. And they have other defensive weapons all around him that make it even like one of the best defenses in the country. And, you mentioned JT Daniels. I don't even think he's playing. I think it's going to be Stetson Bennett again.
Oh God. So I watched him play. I watched him play, and all they did was run the ball the whole game. And I think he threw like 9 times. It didn't even matter though. Like they're just a machine right now.
Yep. And then finally, we'll stick with the SEC. Ole Miss against Tennessee. Tennessee is playing very well with Hendon Hooker, who I think is becoming more and more of an indictment that Justin Fuente had no idea what to do with him. It's a 2.5 point spread, but this could be an interesting game. Matt Corral in that Mississippi offense against Hendon Hooker, who looks really good with the Volunteers. Who do you have in this one?
You hate Justin Fuente, man.
I'm not a fan of him.
Yeah, you know what? Ole Miss surprised me last week with that last minute win. I didn't think Lane Kiffin was a guy that would have his team bounce back after getting absolutely killed the week before, but give credit to them. They did. And I think they win and cover this week.
All right, Eric, before you go, totally off topic. At this point in the season, who do you have winning the ACC?
Oh, Boston College, of course.
All right. I love your thinking. Eric, where can people find you on social media?
Find all my hot college takes under EJ and then my last name Hoffses, Hoffses at EJ Hoffses. And all my barbecue stuff is under Hoffa BBQ. Thanks, AJ.
All right. Thanks, Eric. And we'll see you again next week when we are talking about the Louisville Cardinals. This is AJ Black. You can follow me on Twitter at AJ_BC. Make sure to follow our site on BC Bulletin and our podcast at Locked On BC. Thank you all again. And I will be live at Boston College. I am covering the game in the press box on Saturday. So stay tuned to my Twitter account and BC Bulletin for full analysis. And if I get a chance, I will definitely go Locked On Live after the game. Thank you all for listening, and we'll see you all again soon. Take care, everyone.